20 years have passed since a tragic fire at an illegal rave killed over 100 people outside Austin, Texas. But is that all that happened on the night in question? Experience the horror of Vampire the Masquerade like never before. Jackalope LARP and White Wolf present a blockbuster LARP horror event. The Night in Question, November 17th, 2018, Austin, Texas. Jackalope-larp.com for tickets and information. Where will you be on the night in question?
You are now listening to the NerdWords podcast, brought to you by UtilityMuffinLabs.com. If you know your party's extension, please dial it now. Press 1 for customer service. Press 2 for podcasts. Press 3 to check on an order. Press 4 to...
Welcome to another episode of the NerdWords podcast. I'm Nathan.
And I'm Bob.
And we are joined by Rachel today.
Hello.
And first and foremost, Bob, I have to offer you my sincerest apology because I was at a wedding in Chicago, but I had absolutely zero fucking time to stop and say hi. It was like, essentially from the moment we rolled in, we were doing shit. And
his mom called us, like we had gotten into Chicago, and his mom called us like almost as soon as we had stopped, asking us to do stuff.
So, yeah, we had to go and pick up the tuxedo, and I won't mention any like names because I don't want to like diss anybody, but
Right.
it was a rental tuxedo, so let's just say,
saw the photo.
yeah, right. Let's just say that
A cute photo, I'd say too.
yeah, we
good couple photo.
we take a good picture.
Yeah, we're cute together.
So
We complement each other. We look like we belong together. It's like two puzzle pieces, oddly shaped puzzle pieces by themselves, but then together they
make the corner.
Yeah, we make a corner.
Yeah. So we get to Chicago, and we have to be at this mansion place. It's like a church and a mansion. It's actually weird because I don't think we ever actually were in the mansion. So it's like a historic mansion, and so I guess they built like there's a mansion and a church, right? But I don't think we actually ever went inside the mansion itself. So we have to go and we have to do the hour-long, what do you call the
Rehearsal.
The rehearsal.
It was at the Jacob Henry Mansion.
At the Jacob Henry Mansion in downtown Joliet, Illinois. And so we have to go and we have to do the rehearsal, and it's outside. We're going to do it like in the garden or whatever. And it looks like a place where you would have weddings. It's like, there's nothing crazy or out of the ordinary about it. And for those of you who are listening, this will be potentially news to you, but you have met my brother. And my brother, by himself, not terrible. My brother is like the ringleader of a small cadre of less intellectually stimulated fellas. We'll just put it that way. One of the guys, who you and I both know as Meth Mouth,
Right.
He stood up in the wedding. So
He's still alive.
So
that's good.
He's still alive, has children, right? But we were told no need. Yeah, he's got children. But no need to wear anything specific. This part is casual, right? and he was casual, white t-shirt, Hatchet Man pendant. He came real classy.
What's a hatchet man, Nate?
Well, so for those of you that don't know, a Hatchet Man is the logo or icon for a record label called Psychopathic Records, that was created by the Insane Clown Posse, and they put out all the Insane Clown Posse albums and all the other Juggalo style music, right? For those of us who are a little bit nerdy, we probably know who the Juggalos are. Well, my brother is what I like to refer to as a recovering Juggalo or recovered Juggalo, right? But like any other terrible addiction, you can backslide at any time. But most of his friends are current or were, right? Like they come from that culture. And so we're there, we're doing the trial run, and his could you do me a favor?
Yep.
We gotta hit the air conditioning real quick. I turned it down. Apparently, I'm not smart enough to turn it off.
What's fascinating is I can't even hear it.
No, but you know who can? The fucking Adobe Audition can.
Oh, well, that's not garbage.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, it's because the microphone picks it up. But, so that's good. It picks up, it's very sensitive. So we go there, and my brother's wife's family are a lot more traditional. You know, they're a very typical family. And her friends are, like, you know, pretty normal. We'll use that word. We'll use normal and juggalo, right?
Just nice Midwesterners.
Yeah, just very nice, very, you know, traditional types of folks. My brother's friends are like drunks and criminals and various malcontents. Kind of grown up in very small town, like Midwestern, like
wrong side of the railroad tracks.
Definitely wrong side of the tracks. My brother is the most
definitely
accomplished.
Crossing boundaries, even
right,
in the mind.
Right. And so, well, here's where it really gets good. So we meet their pastor or priest, minister, their minister, and she is Korean. She is like
from Korea. Definitely
from Korea. And so how do I do this and still be sensitive to do you remember Mad TV? Miss Swan?
Yes, I do.
Do you remember Miss Swan?
I do.
That is pretty much spot on for how she sounds. And
so she had like she knows English, but it's rough sounding.
She knows English, and her English is very good. She has an accent that, you know, she's not skilled at mimicking a American accent. She has a very strong Korean accent.
If you were gonna like make fun of someone's accent and like make up an Asian accent, that's pretty much how she sounds.
But to be clear, her English is excellent. She just has a very strong accent.
Yeah. Which, you know, any full-grown adult can listen to someone talk and can not like draw attention to the fact that her English is good but a little iffy in the accent area. Again, I said it like a full-grown mature adult. Reference my brother's friends group.
Right, which is
not
painted so far as seemingly not.
No, not at all. Not at all. And look, I want to establish here, none of them seemed like bad people. These are just people that like kind of are, again, like wrong side of the tracks people. I don't know anything about them individually. I don't know anything about them morally, but these are people who...
It's like when they went to the tact store, the couth wasn't on sale, so they just never picked any up. You know what I'm saying? Very uncouth.
I do.
Okay. Yeah. Not bad people.
I'm with you. Yep.
Awesome, nice folks. Just...
Right. So the ceremony, the practice ceremony is a little long because she's very much performing a sacrament, a ritual. And I had stood up in a wedding before, same wedding you stood up in, and that one... It was pretty much to the point, right? It was like, it's like a 10, 15-minute ceremony. Everybody's done. Thank you. Good night. This, like, we're walking into a garden, and these are guys, like, with simple directions are it's very difficult for them to follow. However, when we go and we line up, we're doing the pretend ceremony, she hands me a Bible. And I'm like, okay, what do I do this with this? And I'm standing behind my brother because I'm his best man. And so then we do this little pretend ritual, and then like everybody leaves and goes back. And I'm like, do you want to take your book back? And she's like, you hold that. And I'm like, okay. So I'm still holding the book, and we walk back down again, and I'm like, book, take the book. And she's like, no. There'll be a table here, so we'll put the book on the table. You hold the book. And now, so that you understand, she has an iPad, and she has like a bunch of paperwork, and she also has a Bible. And like, I guess their hands are placed on the Bible, and she wraps her shawl around it, and you know, that's how you complete the ritual. But like, nobody told me I had to hold a book. So I was like, take your book back. And she was like, no, you hold the book. And I'm like, what? Why do I got to be the guy that holds the book? Like, why do I have to hold your book?
Yeah, Nathan wouldn't shut up about having to hold the Bible for like the whole rest of the evening and the next day. He's like, I don't know why I got to be the guy that holds the Bible. I'm like, what was it, blistering your hands or something? Like, could you feel the heat of 1,000 hells? Like, why are you throwing such a conniption over holding this book? And he's like, why do I got to hold the book and the ring?
Well, that's that. Then so we're doing the trial run again, and she looks to me and she's like, oh, the rings, and I'm supposed to give her the fake invisible rings, and I'm like, I don't have the rings because I got the book. So how about I hold the rings and somebody else holds the book? Or like, I don't want to do both. I was like, I got to hold the book and the rings. Like, why do I got to come and do all the work? Right? Like, everybody else has got to stand here. I got to hold them both. And I'm kind of joking, but also I'm like, give me a backpack. Why do I got to hold this fucking book? Like, what
Give me a backpack.
And he's like recanting this tale later, like that evening, to his mom, and he's like, why do I got to hold the fucking Bible? And his mom is like, Nathan, don't say the F word in the Bible.
So she takes the book and hands it to somebody else that's like kind of in a logical place behind her instead of like to the side. And so I don't have to hold the book anymore. And I'm very pleased with this. And they finish it. And it's a bit long-winded. It's like a half an hour ceremony. And, we walk in, we walk out, etc. And then we do a quick, like just a real quick cursory go over to do inside the chapel in case it rains. Because it's been pretty shitty weather. And, because like the whole weekend it was like, raining or drizzling. It's just kind of like,
for sure,
right, overcast and crappy. So we're like, this is the just in case. We know it's not going to rain tomorrow, so this is just in case. We walk down, ooh-yay, 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 everybody goes about their business. Like a 2-minute, like just a very cursory thing. So then we leave, and her parents buy everybody pizza afterwards, so we have to go to...
Jealous of Samos under the bridge.
So there's this fucking pizza place in Lamont, and because everybody's from that area, and her dad's like, oh yeah, it's right under the bridge, and I'm like, oh, we're going to the pizza place that's under the bridge, like we passed Steve the crackhead, we went too far.
No, yeah, it was funny because her mom was like, if you know Lamont, it's by just under the bridge. If you go too far under the bridge, you've gone too far. And I'm like those are. I'm not from here. Like, how are those directions? Like, and then so we're driving there. It's like a half hour away from Joliet, and we're just like making up a theme song. we're like, jealous of Samos. If you pass Steve the crackhead, you've gone too far.
Under the bridge at Jealous of Samos.
Go there, your friends will be jealous of Samo of you. Like it was pretty crazy.
So we get there, pretty and we have to. I made a decision, and that decision was, my brother's getting married. I'm here for the weekend. I guess I'll be eating pizza, right? Like, that's just, oh, well.
But is this also the famous place that you, like, if you did eat pizza with your parents, this was the place?
I actually had never been here before, because
wow.
Yeah, we had never been here. So this was like, it was decent pizza. It wasn't bad, but also I hadn't had pizza in like 9 months. So it could have been a fucking frozen pizza from Tombstone, and it would have been amazing because it's pizza, so it was like, it wasn't bad. It was a little greasy, but it was like, it was good, and they paid for it, so it's like, who cares? And
it was Jealous of Samos. That was the name of this place?
It's Jealous of Samos, like GEL Mos, Jealous of Samos. But when you're singing the song, it's easier to say Jealous of Samos, because then you can make it rhyme with
Jealous
things.
Of Samos.
Yeah, and it was, like it was good pizza. And I guess I've just Googled it. It looks like there's kind of some of them all over the Chicagoland, northern Indiana area. So maybe it's a local chain up there. But yeah, it was good.
Yeah, it was the first time I'd ever had it. I'd never heard of it. But yeah, it was good. So, we have a good time. We eat some pizza. We meet with everybody. It's good old fashioned fun. What we don't know is that they're like, it's a place that serves beer. But we're not there to like drink beer. We're there like, for family and
Of course.
Yeah,
You
so
know.
like her family was like awesome, and took everyone out to eat after rehearsal, and kind of set it up. And they had several appetizers out where you could go serve yourself. There was lots of pitchers of soda and water, so you could pour your own drinks. And then after a little bit, they brought out several pizzas, and it was like all you could eat pizza, right? And once we all made it through the 3 pizzas they brought out more pizzas and everything. So it was like very low key, very family friendly. I think the bride's niece and nephew were there, so there were kids present. It was like family atmosphere. But her parents weren't paying. Like, it wasn't an open bar. Like, they weren't paying for us to drink alcohol,
absolutely.
right? So if you wanted your own drink, you could go to the bar and buy your own beer. But really, most people weren't. Well, when I say most people, I'd say half the people there weren't doing that.
Right. Like the parents of the families, but like, again, reference my brother's friend group, right? And you'll come to understand this better because we get the instructions, and the instructions based on the minister's wishes.
So this is the minister's contract for how people are to conduct themselves prior to the start of the ceremony on Friday.
No one is permitted to drink before the wedding.
Right, the day of the wedding.
It's in the contract. Right. And that's their religious wishes. And, they're not mine, but it's not my wedding. So whatever.
Absolutely.
And they've worked very hard, and her parents spent a great sum of money to put this very traditional wedding on. And, we're all there to lend support to Phil, to lend support to his wife. And his friends are like doing a little bit of drinking at the pizza place, and are like very overt and talking about like partying and like all this shit to
recalling tales of their rowdy youth and perhaps things you would not want to say in front of your have said about you in front of your future father-in-law, things like that.
Yeah.
Oh man.
So
but they're not trying to like, oh, remember that one time Phil, blah, blah, blah. They're not trying to like, embarrass him. They're just kind of talking, and it's not even occurring to them that perhaps these aren't appropriate things to be saying in front of the bride's family.
Right.
Well, he never bought crack from Steve under the bridge. Right?
No one has like really talked to Steve under the bridge. He's just kind of there, like, hey, what's up?
If you're
looking for Jill Samos, right next door.
Yeah, if you see him, you've gone too far.
Yeah. He's not a bridge troll. He's just a nice guy named Steve. Like, get off his back. He just,
All right.
like.
I feel you.
So I think we get done, and by this time, I think we just like cruise back to our Airbnb, right?
Yeah. Which, by the way, I mean, I will just call this, I mean, I'm not going to say, who the owner of the property was, but, or give free advertising to Airbnb, but we had a fantastic Airbnb experience. So I don't know if anyone's ever heard horror stories, but I've used Airbnb lots of times. And this was like a very nice apartment for a very reasonable amount of money in the Plainfield area. So that was like, made the weekend so easy and so great. So.
Also, I've come to reanalyze. I was always like, oh yeah, it's all that stuff's like pretty close together, right? Like, it's just.
Oh yeah, like, okay, backing up just a moment. When I was like looking for either a hotel or an Airbnb and comparing prices, what made sense, because we were going to be up there like 3 days, and we were both taking vacation days from work to like hang out, make sure we could spend lots of time with family. And I'm like, oh yeah, Nate, where should I be looking for a hotel or an Airbnb, like in the Chicagoland, suburb area? You know the area really well. And he's like, well, it's all really close together. Everything's very nearby. So yeah. And I'm like, what about here, here, here? And he's like, oh yeah, that should be fine. That's equidistant, blah, blah, blah. And he's right. It's equidistant, but it turns out everything is just really far away from each other.
Right. So to go from Joliet to Lamont to back to Plainfield, I think is how we went. That was like an hour.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a hike.
It was far as fuck. And like, I just,
and then Plainfield to Romeoville, and Romeoville to Crest Hill.
Yeah.
Crest Hill, then to Plainfield. I mean, we did almost as much driving there as we did to get there, like distance wise.
Yeah. It was crazy.
Right.
Because it's like you when you live there, when you live there, you're like, oh, it's just, it's a couple, it's just a drive, hop, skip, and a jump over here. But when you move to a city, or even like closer to the city, like where we lived in the Chicagoland area, like a hop, skip, and a jump is like, I don't have to drive through, 30 miles of farmland to get there. It's like, it's, you get in the car and 15 minutes later you're at a place, but you went through humanity to get there. out in this area, it's like, oh, there's the giant refinery, the bleak, desolate Mad Max, like, and then farmland.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
what the fuck? I forgot that. It'd been so long since I lived there. I forgot that everything was like 8 years away from each other.
Right.
But
anyway, we digress.
yeah.
Back to the Juggalos.
So we hear the next day, my mom's like, hey, come over, like 2:00, do whatever, eat lunch. And then I have to be dropped off. This is the next day. So we're, about to like go do the wedding. And we get to my parents' house and my mom's like, if you could do us a favor and just be careful, like what you talk about and like how you talk. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And she's like, well, all of his friends were like bragging to her dad about like partying and like, like smoking
Drugs,
weed
yeah.
and like all this stuff. And I'm like, what? I'm like, well, first of all, no. Now, here's the other important thing. This is something I like, there's an actual imperative secret that I was supposed to keep. She's pregnant, right? So my brother is going to have a kid. And we were
Is that still a secret that we need to be keeping?
no. They've revealed now.
Okay, they've revealed to everybody.
Free.
Okay.
But none of them are going to listen to this podcast.
You never know, man. It's a small world.
Yeah, fair enough. But no,
All right.
it's now that they're married, they were like officially announcing it. But like
And they didn't get married because she was pregnant.
No,
that was
no.
an incidental.
He
Yeah.
proposed, and then he was like, "Come here, let me put a baby in you." So
Yeah.
like she accepted first, and then he got with the baby.
he
making.
obligated her. Yeah, obligated her. Yeah.
But so that was like something she had told me beforehand, like, don't talk about. And they didn't tell anybody really. Like I knew and my parents knew and her parents knew, but they didn't want that, like, because again, they're kind of religious people. They're not like overly religious, but they're kind of religious.
Yeah, they didn't want anyone to think it was a shotgun wedding, basically.
Right.
Like they didn't want to, yeah.
And also I think their pastor or their priest, their minister.
Just pick one. It's
Yeah. Whichever it is.
Well, she was kind of sorting your brother out anyway.
Yeah. Well, that's the
Reformer in a lot of things
let's
too. So.
let's be true about this. I mean, she sorted my brother out pretty well.
Right.
Because my brother, like at the dawning of their relationship, was it was Phil, and now he's like Phil, the married man with responsibilities and like gonna have a kid, and he's turned into something. So definitely not anywhere near on the level of his friend group. But anyways, we get a talking to because his friends were just like actively, openly talking about things that were like among your peer group wouldn't be a big deal, but like to your new in-laws, like what the fuck? And they're like, hey, keep it to a dull roar. And I'm like, what am I going to talk about? The fact that I work out now? And right. But anyways, I'm just like, okay, cool. Because they were such schmucks. So I get dropped off at his house, and we're all the groomsmen are supposed to take a limo in our tuxes to the chapel. And I get there, and our good old friend Meth Mouth, or I'll call him by his real nickname.
This is his internal nickname amongst his friend group.
This is his socially accepted nickname, Queef.
Yeah. That face was the face I made too. I was like, why is he called Queef? No one could tell me. But that's like when you talk about Queef, everyone knows who you're talking about. So this gentleman's name is Queef.
Right.
That's not his real name, but that is his nickname amongst his friends is Queef.
Queef. Yeah. So I get there, and he's already there.
It's even how Nathan's mom and dad referred to him as Queef.
Yeah, Queef.
Yeah, last night Queef was saying some stuff, blah, 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 blah.
Or also Little Queefy.
Yeah, because they've known him since he was a kid.
And he's Hatchet Man Medallion, okay?
Yeah.
So we call him Meth Mouth because we have a legendary tale about him, which I also had to tell her.
Yeah, I didn't know the meth mouth hobo shitfoot story, so I got to hear that for the first time this weekend too.
So we get there, and he's hanging out, and he's like getting changed, and we all have to change in the living room because my brother has two big
Huskies.
two huskies that just shed everywhere. So we're trying to like remain centered in the room where there isn't a bunch of hair. So everybody's like, it's like gym class. Everybody's getting changed in the living room. And he's like, oh man, I got the shakes. He's like, come on, Phil, let me get just like one beer. And he's like, I'll just like chew some gum, take the edge off. And I'm like, are you fucking for real? And he's like, man, I was driving here and there was a Romeoville cop behind me. And I like got all nervous. He's like, I could really use a beer to take the edge off. And my brother's like, no,
Right.
you can't have a beer.
This is
No.
a guy who has to blow into his car to get it to start.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's special.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
Yeah.
so that explains.
So his car won't start if, he fails a breathalyzer, basically.
Right. So his whole friend group shows up, and they're all like, they're very much like the partiers, and they're, a lot of them are kind of like, little, like, yo, what's the deal with what you call it, blah blah blah, very much like that. Like they're like Chicago suburb white, like former thugs who are now like in their late 20s or early 30s. And I like, clearly I don't fit in at all, right? And my brother is like kind of, poking fun, and everybody's hanging out there. And so here's how smart his girlfriend, now wife, is. She told everybody that they had to be at Phil's house by 4:30 because the limo was going to be there at 4:30. And so everybody like rushes to get there, and there's a couple people that are like 4:32, 4:33, 4:35. And my brother's like starting to get pissed because the limo's not there. So he calls one of the bridesmaids, and she's like, oh yeah, that was a lie. The limo's not going to be there till 5 o'clock. Because we knew like your friends are unreliable, and like, they wouldn't be there on time. So I'm just hanging out, and one of his friends is like, it's kind of like drunkish kind of guy, like very jovial, but like with this huge beard. And this is a guy that plays Warhammer. And like that's how I know who he is, but I don't know that he knows how to play Warhammer. But he's like a off the cuff, loud, like says fuck a lot type of guy. And my brother's like, oh man, if you took the tie off or something, if you shaved this, you'd look Amish. And I was like, Phil, the Amish don't wear tuxedos, they wear wool suits. And everybody just like starts going in on me because I did like a well actually. And I was like, hold the fuck up. I was like, hold up. I know that each and every one of you have had that shit happen to you from Phil. I'm doing it to him. So fuck you guys. I'll do it to my brother if I want. I'm the best man. I can well actually my brother because he does it to all of you and I fucking know it. And they're like, oh, okay. So we get in a limo, and you come to learn like none of them have ever been in a limo. The only person out of the group who's been in a limo before is myself and my brother. So like I'd never been with like grown adult men who were like marveling at being in a limousine. And it was a little disconcerting. And I'm like, how is it that none of these fucking people have ever been in a limo before? Well, none of them have ever been in a wedding before. None of them have ever worn a tuxedo before. Like, this is all a new experience. So, like, all of these guys are, like, shitting bricks. They're all super nervous, and they're like, man, I look good as fuck. Like, oh, yeah. And, like, we're driving. So we go through downtown Joliet to get to this limo. And this fucking blew my mind.
Okay, so setting it up, downtown Joliet, there's a really cool old prison that, like, it is close to downtown, right?
Yeah.
So the old prison where, if you've seen Blues Brothers, like, that's where the brother, Dan Aykroyd's character goes to pick up, what's his name?
Belushi. Jake Elwood.
Yeah, goes to pick up,
Joliet Jake.
Belushi's character for when he gets out of prison, right? So, if you've seen Blues Brothers, you know what kind of a little piece of Joliet looks like. So then the courthouse is like a little ways away, right?
Yeah, it's like right in the middle of downtown, and it's this big square.
I'm curious, which side of the bridge was it?
That's a good question.
Is this Stormfront BBQ side, or was this like?
This is.
I'll look it on my time.
Yeah, well, it's in the middle of downtown, so I think it's like on the other. It's like inside of the bridges because there's a lot of like of those bridges and shit.
For people not from Illinois or don't know, like Joliet is about an hour south of Chicago. Would you say
about 35 minutes?
35 minutes south of Chicago. Okay.
Yeah. It's still considered Chicagoland because it's a small city. It's like Chicago, Joliet, and Aurora, Naperville are part of the outside. It's like the furthest reaches of Chicagoland. That's like the Chicago suburbs. That's basically where they end, right?
After that, it's just farms.
Yeah, it's just bullshit.
Just corn and soybeans.
Yeah. So we're driving downtown, And like we're driving through like kind of like not a great neighborhood, and then we get into the downtown area and we pass this courthouse, and in unison all of these dudes start flipping off the courthouse. And I'm like, what the fuck is going on here? And they're all, and one of them, I don't remember which one, but one of them's like, yeah, it feels good being like dressed all up in a suit and like driving past a courthouse in a limo. And I'm like, what the fuck? Because like,
They're used to being incarcerated over here.
Right, exactly. They're used to like this is the place where they go to have their court cases or their custody battles or their DUI. Like this is and it's funny to me, but it's also like it's sad because like these are people that like they don't know about any of this. This is totally outside of their comfort zone, like wearing a suit or going to like a fancy occasion or like going to an actual marriage that isn't like in a courthouse.
So Nate was kind of telling them flipping off in unison as if they had practiced it all together, the courthouse as they're driving by. He was telling his mom and dad this later. And he's like, have you ever seen The Wire? Like, and he was like comparing it to like the kids in The Wire.
Yeah. Do you remember the episode of The Wire where like all the kids get taken to like a fancy restaurant and they're like super uncomfortable and they're like making fun of each other? That's what was happening here, but with like white guys. Like,
we're adults.
Right. Like adult white men. And so anyways, long story short, we get to the chapel and we've found out first and foremost that it's indoors now. The garden party, the whole garden thing, that's not happening.
It's just rained too much that day.
Right. So we're doing it inside the church, which to be fair was more logical to begin with. And the inside of this chapel was bitchin'. Like,
it was beautiful.
Yeah, you don't really use that term for a church, but it was awesome. It was like this huge high vaulted ceiling with like these huge like stained glass windows, and Stevis was there and he's playing the flutes and the whole thing. Right?
Okay, backing up. When we were okay.
Is this Bridge Steve?
No, this is a different Steve. Yeah. So what happened was during the rehearsal the day before, there's like all of this religious iconography all over, including the really big, beautiful stained glass windows. And, I was just kind of like, I recognized who some of these figures were. And I was like, oh, do you know who that is? And Nate goes, no. And I'm like, oh, well, that's Jesus. And then, like there's like, an angel across the way with like a flute. And he's like, is that Stevis, his friend? So for the rest of the night, Nate's like calls him Stevis and, like Saint Stevis or whatever. Anyway.
So it's like the Def Jam Jesus.
Right. Yeah. Well, because I'm looking at him and like one I could recognize as Jesus and he had like a bunch of lambs. And then there was another guy and like the picture of the person looked exactly the same as the picture of Jesus, but like he just wasn't holding any lambs. And I was like, aren't they all Jesus? No, that's like St. Peter or whatever. But I was like, no, that must be Stevis, like Jesus' buddy Stevis.
Just making up his,
Because there was only three. I was like, Stevis, Revis, and Jesus. Like
the whole Trinity. Anyway,
so
the chapel,
wedding. We get to the chapel and everybody gets out, and I'm experiencing all kinds of things that are very strange. Like everybody but me smokes. So in unison, right away, everybody disappears. They all go to smoke. You come back and then you're like, where did everybody go? And it's everybody went to go smoke. And so we get there and the everything's changed. Basically, everything's changed. He's like,
the minister.
The minister is like, we're going to do this now and we're going to do this now. And this minister is like, she's like, for lack of a better term, she's balls deep in how this is going down. Like
she's bossy.
She's in total control. She's like, this is what's happening and this is what's going to happen here. And remember, I said this is a group of gentlemen who are not particularly good at following directions, that have a very short attention span. And so she's like, all right, this is going to happen. You're going to walk in. We're going to say this. And then everybody's going to sit down and we're going to do a sermon. And then we're going to come back up. We're going to do the kneeling. We're going to light the unity candle. And then, I now pronounce you man and wife. And they leave. And all these guys are like, they're like nodding. And one of them goes, I mean, but like, what even is a sermon? And I'm like
magnets? How do they work?
Yeah.
Fucking precisely.
Yeah.
I mean, like, what even is a sermon?
Oh, and he wasn't joking.
No, not at all. No. But again, like, this is very humorous but it's also kind of sad, right? And that's like, I'm kind of making fun of him, but I'm not really, like, I'm trying to, like,
If you're like me, you're guffawed.
right, exactly.
You're trying to figure out what pocket of the universe you could exist in
And I'm like,
where these things don't happen.
I was like, do you not like know what a sermon is? And like they didn't. And my brother was like, da 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 da. She's gonna do this, right? Like my brother's annoyed. Like you could tell he's just like, let's get this shit over with. So we go through the ceremony, and we're supposed to be in at 6, out at 6:30. Well, she made changes, and that added 15 minutes onto this fucking ceremony. So we're standing and then sitting and then standing again for 45 minutes. And the best thing you could ever imagine happened.
Oh yeah. And he's not joking. Like, this is the best thing that could have happened.
So his wife's sisters were like his her maid of honor and her matron of honor.
Right.
Which I guess, because one's married, one's not married. And one of her sisters has 2 kids, and her sister's husband is one of the ushers, and her other sister's boyfriend is the other usher. And her sister's husband is kind of real hands off with the whole watching the kids. So
the kids, a little boy and a little girl, were the flower girl and the ring bearer, right? They're adorable, at the beginning, throwing flowers, and then the ring bearer, he's like 2. I mean, he's been walking only just this year, right? So he's adorable, like in his tiny little person suit, just being super cute. But then I think at some point after they've, thrown the petals and everybody's gotten down, including the father of the bride's walked her down, the kids kind of disappear somewhere near grandma, near the front. And I don't see them again until, like, as soon as the ceremony starts and that the minister's talking, all of a sudden the children appear again.
Right.
They just, like, appear up by the altar. And I don't know what happened to the little boy. I think someone grabbed him. Right. But no one grabbed the little girl. And she's like 3.
Right. And so at first she's like going up to mom, and like mom is standing behind getting married sister. Right. Yep. And like her job is to stand there
and look pretty,
and hold flowers. Yep. And like be present in the ceremony, mm-hmm. right? She can't like go child her kid. She can't go like parent her child. She's got to stand there. And little girl's starting to get a little fussy. And mom's like, can't really do shit. Like, I'll just let her go so she doesn't start crying. And dad is nowhere to be seen.
No, he was sitting in the pews, just kind of like watching and smiling.
Yeah, right. He's just like not paying attention, just whatever. And so she starts like kind of climbing around on the furniture.
The little girl.
And we're like up on, like, this is a legit church. We're up on like a dais, and there's like these things that I don't know what they're called, but you climb up on top of them, and like you do your sermon.
It's where you give the sermon from, yeah. And there's like a sanctuary behind where like the choir would be standing, and so it's pretty ornate. It looks like an old school like German American church.
And there's like a huge organ in the back, and there's like a little separator that you would go through. It's like a wall. Like a wooden wall, like half wall that separates the organ from...
If it were a Catholic church, it would be the part of the church that nobody is supposed to go into except for the priest. But it wasn't a Catholic church, so I'm not sure what it's called or what, anyway.
So she's climbing around, and children become very perceptive because when no one comes to stop them from doing what they're doing, that means like they can just keep doing it, right? And so she's like bouncing all around.
She's running back and forth in the sanctuary behind the minister as and everybody's giggling. And like Nate, I look over at Nate, and Nate is like trying real hard not to laugh. Like he's like biting his lip, and like the bridesmaids are like giggling and laughing. And one bridesmaid has her like flowers in front of her face because like this little girl is back there just running around. And like, it's like you can hear like her little like footsteps. Like you hear like a giggle, like, and then you hear
she's like throwing herself on the floor and rolling around and just like up, down, everywhere. It doesn't matter. And so meanwhile, this very serious ritual, this wedding procession, like this whole thing is going on, and nobody's going to get the kid. Nobody's stopping because you can't, like, it's going. People are getting married, and you can tell, I could tell at least, that the priest, she's she's not happy that there's a child running around
behind her.
right, but or the minister, like, she's not happy that this is happening, but there is nothing she can do about it because she can't stop either, right? Like, once the truck is in motion, it does not stop until it's over.
Yeah, like this is not a woman who was ever going to go into improv. Like, she had one job to do. She was there for one reason, and she was going to stay on script no matter what.
And she had a script. Again, remember, I said she came with an iPad, right?
Yeah.
She had it all written down.
She read from that iPad the whole time.
Right.
There was nothing from the heart. It was very much read. Yeah.
Right. So we go and sit down, and I think at that point someone like grabbed the little girl.
Yeah.
I don't remember. But she gets up and she does a sermon, and it's like another 15 minutes. And I'm just like, oh, God. And like, my feet are killing me. My back is killing me. We've been standing up there for 15 minutes already. We sit down. She's up on the top, but the little girl's still down on the bottom, just like bouncing around.
Bing, 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 bing,
right?
bing.
Because, nobody's like taking the initiative, and Dad, who should be, is just, he's like, I got to stand here. It's not my kid. Like, but it's his fucking kid, right? And
that's your job is super important once
Yeah.
the wedding's underway.
Right.
And
Absolutely.
someone had hold of the little boy because he was doing this thing where he couldn't quite speak yet, but he would look at a thing and point at it and go, this.
That's so cute.
So I could hear him in the back of the church, and I looked over at one point, and he's like pointing up at one of the big stained glass windows, and he's going, this, and just like you could hear it like different parts of the church throughout the ceremony, just this little boy cooing. So someone had grabbed him early, and he was cool. The little girl was like had no concept of what was happening.
Nope. But here's what I think she actually did.
Yeah.
But like, to see a child just not take any of this stuff seriously at all
Was awesome.
It was just fantastic. It was like, there's this very serious thing going on, and meanwhile there's a child just like doing whatever she wants, just bouncing up and down, jumping, doing whatever. And so then after she does the sermon, the two sisters have to go up and say something as well. And so
They did the reading. Yeah. So
But-
they read from the Gospels. Anyway.
So the one sister goes up, and then the little girl runs up there because it's her daughter, and she like is like, now like it's her chance. She's like trying to grab her daughter, but her daughter's like, ah! And so she's like, well, shit, I don't, like, so she let's go over real quick and continues to read, because like this is like super important and imperative for her sister.
She doesn't want to be the one that's screwing up her sister's ceremony.
Right. But you can see in her eyes, she's like, my sister is going to kill me because my little daughter is just like rampaging,
Terrorizing the
Right.
church.
Right.
like trying to open up little doors and try, like, where can I go now? Because no one's stopping me. There's all these people here. Nobody's stopping me. So I'm just like, this is great. And all the guys that are sitting with me, they're all like chuckle, like snicker. And, they're to their credit, they're doing the best that you could expect them to do. Because
I mean, I was laughing.
Right.
Yeah.
Remember, they're not only dealing with this kid that's running around, that's like making all this seem very ridiculous, but they're also dealing with like the comical nature of the minister's accent and trying really hard not to snicker. Like, this is like what shit movies are made out of, right? Like, really terrible, like, let's go to the wedding movie. Like,
It was like the juxtaposition of her very thick accent with the seriousness of what she was saying. I mean, like, remember that scene from The Princess Bride where the priest is standing up and it's like the famous scene where he's like, marriage is what brings us together today, and love. Twoo, wav. Like, and he's got like that speech impediment, and that's why it's so memorable, right? Those couple of lines. I mean, that's what it was. What she was saying was like deadly serious, and she was taking this like as a sacrament or whatever.
I'm trying to get that though. She articulated well though, right?
She was articulating it well. Her English is very good. She was like, grammatically, it was perfect. She had a very thick Korean accent.
Yeah. I don't want to do it on the podcast.
Don't do it. It's like, we don't need to do it. Everyone knows what we're saying.
Right.
And we are not trying to make fun of her at all, but it
added to the overall,
I mean, it was a very thick accent.
Right. So anyways, we now pronounce you man and wife 45 minutes. Like, oh my God. Like, all right, so we're good. Everybody then goes for cocktail hour, except for the wedding party, who now has to wait for an hour while they do pictures. I'm sure you're familiar with this concept too.
Oh, it's typical.
Yeah.
A lot of this, I won't say a lot of this is typical, but I will say just from being at weddings, the best part is the kid.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Hands down.
Tear
Right.
through.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. So anyways, the wedding is very typical. Like, it's a very like standard, big wedding affair. And so then that gets done, we take our pictures or whatever, and then we all have to go and sit up on the dais, like up on the stage, and the wedding and the reception were all in the same building. So basically we're just like moving to different locations in the building. And then, then it's speech time. And so the DJ, they go through all the bride and the groom speak, and the DJ comes up to me and he's like, hey, do you want to go? When do you want to do your speech? Do you want to like go first? Do you want to let them go? And this is my favorite part of the whole wedding. Back at the post,
Like at the pizza dinner.
right at the pizza dinner, I find out I have to do a speech.
Well, it's like, Nate knew he had to give a toast, but he didn't realize that that involved him speaking for a couple minutes. He thought it was just like, hey, let's everybody, this is my brother, I love him. It's like, raise our glasses to, who, blah, 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 and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. Because I've never been the best man in a wedding. And it didn't.
I always thought you could do it that way if you wanted.
I mean, I suppose you could.
But what was expected of him and what he was not told was that a speech.
He was
because
like a 5-minute speech.
her sisters had written speeches. Like the maid of honor and the matron of honor
Right.
had written speeches. And so he had never gotten the memo that that's what was going to happen. And then at the pizza dinner, when he found this out, his wife, his brother's wife was like, I told you to tell him this. He's like, I did. And it's like, no one ever told me this.
And it's like, remember, like we had that conversation where I was like, hey, yeah, you're gonna have to write a speech. And I was like, I don't think that's how that conversation went. Because my brother is very like flippant, like, oh yeah, now you're gonna have to write a speech. And I went, yeah, I'll have to write a speech.
Well, backing up even further, originally he had asked you to officiate the wedding.
Yes.
And then that kind of fell through as you knew it would, because her family goes to church every Sunday, and you knew it was going to be a church wedding. And even though maybe your brother would have been like, yeah, it'd be awesome to have my brother officiate the wedding, you knew that wasn't going to play out, right? Once it got ran past her and her family. So then he says to you, well, I guess you'll have to settle for best man. And this means you have to give a speech now. Ha ha ha.
Right.
6 months later, Nate's finding out, you really have to give a speech.
So did you write a speech? And I'm like, write a speech? No, I didn't know I had to write a speech. Oh, I told you, remember? No. Okay. So here I am, night before, and I'm like, no, I'm not going to write a speech. I'm a LARPer. LARPers don't write speeches. What do fucking LARPers do? We just figure it out on the spot. We just do it in the moment, right? And I was like, I'm gonna ad lib. To me, I was like, the moment I start putting words to paper, it just like,
that's when the stress kicks in.
Right, exactly. And I was like,
because now you're performing to your own words.
Right,
exactly. And so I was like, no, I'm not gonna write a speech. I'm gonna do it in the moment. So anyways, the DJ comes up to me and he's like, when do you want to go? Do you want to go like after the girls? Do you want to go first? And I was like, I'm going first. I'm like, fuck it. I'm gonna do it now. It's gonna be good. It's gonna be bad. I don't know, but I'm gonna do it first. Get it over with. And here's what's fucked up about it. I had zero nervousness. None.
Right.
I had no nervousness at all. And everybody's like, oh man, you got to do a speech. Are you nervous? And I was like, I'm in full on sociopath mode. Like, I'm not feeling a thing. I'm like, I'm going to get up. I'm going to do a speech. Well, that's how I felt. Like I had, sometimes you get butterflies. You're like, oh, I got to speak, And I didn't. I had no trepidation. And it was bizarre. It was like something clicked in my head. And I just, I got to do a speech. It'll be cool. That's it. I'm just going to go from the heart. That's it. And so,
I mean, honestly, it wasn't like you were looking to impress. I mean, it's a family, right?
Right,
and you knew them.
Right.
Your brother.
Right, exactly. And I was like, but, I'm going through all these things in my head beforehand, and I'm like, well, there's a lot of things I can't talk about because people, my brother has not been an angel.
Best light.
Right. And earlier we're joking, and he's like, maybe it would be a good idea if you made a speech about the things I've never done. And I was like,
tough. Yeah,
here's
absolutely.
Phil. He's never been skydiving.
But like, so on the drive to Chicago, Nate told me this really heartfelt story about his wife and, a really nice, sweet interaction they had together and how, he was like really liked her and thought she was a great person. And then so when he found he had to write a speech, obviously he can take care of himself. He doesn't need my advice, but I was like, yeah, just, say your brother's a great guy and, tell a version of the story you told me in the car and bingo, bango, you're set. Everyone's going to love that. That's kind of what you did.
So I got up and I made a speech, and it was from the heart about my brother and our unique experiences and our unique relationship, and about how lovely his wife was and that story there. And I was done.
And he remembers none of it.
And I have no fucking clue what I said. I have no idea what I said, but people clapped. And all night long, people were like, dude, good speech.
So I was sitting at the family table with, Nate and his brother's family, and his mom was sitting next to me and kind of next to me and behind me because they were round tables. And like every time Nate would say something, she'd poke me in the back and then she'd kind of smile and give me a thumbs up. And then one time she did that and she poked me in the back and smile and give me a thumbs up. And she's like tearing up. And I look over at his dad, and his dad is like doing one of these, like looking up and looking away. Like you can tell he's tearing up, but he's too much of a man to act like he's really engaged in what's going on. But like even his dad was tearing up a little bit, and I was like, "Oh, good job, Nate."
Yeah. So I made a speech, and I have to admit, even though I cannot recall the specifics of the content, I can assure you, much in the same way I'm sure you've experienced this as well, 20 years of LARPing really fucking pays off. Because I just like got up and I was like, talkie. Everybody claps. And I'm like, but wait, there's more. And then people, everybody quiets down. And I'm like, Philip's great and all, but and then I tell a story about her and everybody's like, clutching at their, like, oh my God. And I was just like, all right, cool. Thank you. Have a nice day. And then her sisters had to follow it. And they were as nervous as fuck.
That's the thing that I think you did beautifully, because I could give you both perspectives.
Mm-hmm.
I had the exact same setup you did. I was at B-Wood's wedding, flew to Texas, pretty much close to short notice for us.
Right.
And we, me and Melissa go. And we're there, and pretty much as Rachel did for you, Melissa had to do for me. Because I'm now in this Texas hotel, sweating with the AC on, trying to figure out, there's like 300 people at his wedding.
Right.
Like Brandon's known.
Right.
Like it's everybody. Everybody who knew anybody was swamped in. And I'm like, nah, that's all the invitations. Not everybody's going to show up, right? That's logical.
Right.
Long story short, I was wrong. And when I get up there, the only key thing I had was frozen margaritas. They were all about everybody drinking while this is going on. And Melissa goes, babe, do you got that speech ready? And I was like, I LARPed for 20 years. I'm not even joking. I sat there like I'm smiling because I sat here going, how hard is this? I've been a Justicar. Like, let's do this, right? And then I get up there and they were like, do you want to go first? And I'm looking at her sister, right, the maid of honor, and I'm like, no, I don't. Why? She has her little paper there, right, with all these words on it. And I said to myself, I was like, if I get up there and do great, how is she going to follow that?
Right.
Was a thought in my head. Here's where I'm wrong, though, right? She's up there and she's literally looking at me, but I don't know her well enough to get the cue.
Right.
Which she was like, you go first. You do it. Because she just wanted to see, the speech. I'm not certain if she's ever done one.
Right.
But that's what it was. But I'd curious to let her go. And we went, and I had the exact same experience you're talking about. I went there, it just flowed out. It came from the heart, and just everyone was applauding.
Right.
Like you would have thought Samuel L. Jackson gave the speeches and then dropped the mic. And I was like, cool. And I walked over and I was like, I'm half drunk. Looking at people, they're like, what? That was awesome. Did you rehearse that? Nah, man, I'm sauced. And they're like, what? I am literally drunk. And I'm telling you this because I need water.
Right.
I was that bad because I could feel it. My ship was fading. And they're getting water. And it's like, it baffled me because I couldn't do it. But in hindsight, why I even told all that was because I think you going first relaxed everybody.
Right.
And I think following after that made it to where those who even perform speeches could just kind of go with that flow,
right,
and kind of see what you laid out. So I think you did very well, man.
Well, and that was the other thing too. I was like, if I let them go first, I feel like that's going to make me nervous, right? Because they they sat down, they prepared these speeches, and I have nothing. I have bupkis in my hand, right? I have to come up with this off of the top of my head, and without the benefit of alcohol.
Right.
I have no booze. We couldn't drink booze. It's in the contract. So I was just like, give me the mic. Let me do this. Let me do my thing. And I just busted it out.
Freestyle.
Right. And so they do their speeches. They're beautiful. They're well thought out. They're fantastic. And then, everybody gets to like the cake cutting and the daddy, mommy dance, da 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 da. We're eating. Like that's what everybody wants to eat. So we're eating, and you've had a meal that is more than just like a McDonald's hamburger and fries. Meals at weddings usually come in stages, right? Like courses, you might call them. And so I sit down, and there's coffee, coffee cups, and I'm like, oh great, I'm gonna have coffee. I'm not waiting for the beer, I'm not waiting for the wine. You know me well enough. I'm waiting for the coffee, right? I want to slurp down some coffee,
Let's put it this way. There was a Dunkin' Donuts budget for this trip. Like I knew so much coffee was going to be consumed by Nathan while we were in Chicago, because there's not as many Dunkin' Donuts in Indianapolis. So as soon as he can get that sweet, sweet Dunkin' coffee, he goes all out. We spent almost as much money on Dunkin' Donuts coffee as we did like on anything else.
Right.
Like an equal amount on just like, hey, can we stop and get a coffee, babe? So like when there was coffee at the wedding, and you hadn't had a coffee since probably 3:30 in the afternoon.
Right.
Here it is, 7:00 at night. That's a long time for Nate to go without any coffee.
Right.
Exactly.
So again, we're having a meal that has courses.
You gotta give me the juggalo vision.
Yeah.
Is this where it's going? Okay, good. Sorry, I jumped ahead.
So the wait staff comes in, and they set down these carafes of coffee. And again, the unnamed particular individual, could have been any of them, is like, coffee? Who even drinks that? Wow, that's gross. Why would you have that at a meal? And I'm like, this is a meal with courses, and this is the coffee course. So that's why.
Yeah, like a lot of times before you eat dessert at a nicer meal, they'll serve coffee first, or like at the same time as the dessert. That was completely over their head.
No. And so like, I kind of was like, yeah, this is a fancy meal with courses. So that's why there's coffee and cake. And like one of her sister's husbands is sitting at the table across from me, and he's just beaming. He's just like cracking up. Right. Cause like he's from the other side of the tracks that like I'm coming from. Like I've eaten a fancy meal. I've left Romeoville. I understand that there's things like coffee and cake. But
it's not even like he's from the right side of the tracks. He's just like a normal middle class guy who has had a meal before where someone gave him like an appetizer, a salad, a meal, and then coffee, and then cake. Like this is not new for him. So he's like cracking up too. Right.
He's like, dude, you should teach a course. I'm like, no, I shouldn't. But like all these guys like looked at me and were just kind of like, I could tell you the fuck you had set in, where they were just like, because it was, none of them had ever been to a wedding where you had to wear a suit, but you could tell when you looked out at the crowd from the top of the stage, you could tell who all of my brother's friends were, because they were all wearing their court clothing.
Their good hat. Like they were
wearing their white cap.
What the hell is court clothing?
Oh, you don't know about court clothing?
You don't know about court clothes?
That's where you wear your like your good jeans and your white t-shirt.
Right. You wear a white t-shirt and the nicest pair of blue jeans you got.
And your clean Nikes.
You know what else you wear? That button-up flannel.
Yeah.
Right? Your court clothing. It's the clothing that you wear to your court case. Yeah.
Okay.
You got it? You got it? You understand?
Right.
Yeah.
Now I'm with you.
Yeah. Instead of wearing like your beat up Adidas cap, you wear like your white one, right? Because that's the one you wear to all the fancy occasions, like weddings.
And the girls were better, but like I told Nate like right before the wedding, I was like, oh man, I've been working out. I felt like I looked pretty good. And I had this dress that I got, from TJ Maxx. It wasn't like a super fancy dress, but it was kind of like in between where you could wear it to a nice event or you could wear it to the club. And I was like, is this too casual, like night out on the town for a wedding? I'm like, oh, I don't know. And like, I was wearing heels and they were kind of strappy. And I was like, I don't know, is this too sexy for a wedding? Or like, where am I on the spectrum of like, I look nice to like, I look like I'm going out? And I was still concerned about it until I saw some of the other women at the wedding who like clearly gave that no thought at all.
Didn't
like,
give,
so I was like, all right, I'm not overdressed or underdressed for this affair. Like I'm good. I'm good.
Because after the wedding, the nightclubs are still open. And that's, that's just, but.
Fair enough.
Right. It was, there was a table full of my brother's friends and they were essentially wearing fancy street clothes. And I was just like, wouldn't you like go to a Goodwill or something, like wear a suit to a wedding? But no.
Just like even a pair of khakis and a button up.
Right.
But like your nice, like your nice Adidas t-shirt.
Right.
Yeah.
No, they weren't wearing interview clothing. They were wearing court case clothing.
Court clothing.
Yep. Right.
My head went to a cultural shock, right? Because my brother is a former juggalo as well.
Right.
Right. My half brother.
Mm-hmm.
And I know exactly what you're talking about, right? Having met both sides of it. And I could tell you Chicago juggalos are no different than Romeoville.
Right. No, absolutely. No, it's.
And, so seeing some of that, I was like going, okay, there's court clothing. And then immediately in my head, are they so insular to have like a king and queen of the clown posse?
Oh, court.
Do they have like, like, yes, my lord and lady? Like I'm picturing people with like these, like pimp clothes almost.
Yeah.
But to clown fashion. So you had me there for a minute.
No, court case, gotta go do that community service, Gotta check in.
Out the office from the limo.
Gotcha. Gotta go find out how much you owe baby mama.
But all in all, I would say it was a pretty, as wild as it could have gotten. It was pretty. Even there was an open bar.
Yeah.
People were
for a long time.
People were pretty well behaved.
Yeah. It was. His friends.
Sounds like a good time.
Yeah,
honestly.
his friends were rowdy, but all in all, these are kind of like the ridiculous aspects of it. But it was like a traditional wedding.
Yeah. There was, someone did puke in the men's restroom.
Oh yeah,
we don't know who. There was a girl who got so drunk that she fell down 2 or 3 stairs and spilled a drink. But that's the worst that happened.
Yeah.
Which that's a blessed wedding. No, she didn't break anything.
No,
but apparently she biffed it pretty hard down those stairs.
Yeah, I don't think there was any actual physical fist fights.
Nope.
At the wedding.
No
itself.
verbal confrontations.
No. Lots of elderly people there. I mean, it was like it's a standard, straightforward wedding, but it was good to kind of like to see my brother, blossom into an actual adult human being, and. Yeah, so that was our weekend basically. Then we went to like a after wedding party at my brother's house yesterday, and
it's like a barbecue.
Had some hockey pucks and sticks that were lit on fire. My brother. So this is a funny thing, and then we'll wrap up here. But this fucking goofball thought it was a good idea to grill bacon on a grill with no like foil underneath it or anything. And my brother doesn't grill so well, right? He puts things on the grill and then he goes and does something else and comes back, and he opens the grill and the top rack is just ablaze. Like it's just on fire. And it's just like all that's left is like dripping, hanging, burning meat from it. But that's how he is, So yeah, and then we drove back today. Pretty straightforward.
Yeah.
Which is also a good time too.
Yeah,
I might say.
Yeah. We got back pretty quick. We took the scenic route, but yeah, that was about it. So
yeah, it's not super short. I mean, I did the Changeling game again, learning even more about that.
Oh yeah, how did that go?
I would love to tell you all sorts of awesome things about it, except that it's just a good time.
Right.
I mean, the game, when we eventually we'll review it, but getting to it, that book, I would say. That's the fun in the World of Darkness. We've known it. We've always known it would be fun to be Fae. But I found it profoundly awesome to be Vindicated. That I said, when I run that game and I read that book, I'm going to get to see how people went too far and missed the point.
Right.
And as I'm running it, the book is basically, because it's 2nd edition, right? There's not like a revised, updated Changeling book that I've seen. It's
I think there's a V20
book, right?
now that just came out.
Right, but beforehand, right?
Right,
You know,
right.
before I started getting my mitts on this, and I'm reading it, and I'm laughing. There's a whole section on glamour, right? Glamour is their power that fuels all Fae. And I'm looking for a dark downside to having no glamour in this book. And off the bat, I started reading the section, and it's basically like if you stopped a scene to come look through here to have any word on glamour one way or the other, you're doing it wrong. That's the synopsis. It's really like don't stop anything.
Right.
If you're telling a scene and you're having fun and it's rolling well, you're doing it right. Ignore this book.
Right.
And I was like, wow, okay, that's pretty profound. But I'm too used to having structure.
Right.
What they intended to see, because this is the grand experiment. Can I see this game, play this game, run this game the way it was intended, and can I see the point to it? And the point's really simple. It's being all things Fae, like Grimm's fairy tale included, and even the
Right.
happy, funny-go-lucky type is there too. The difference is the maturity level required, and that's the interesting part. You have a bunch of adults, and this game brings out their inner child, right? Their inner need to just fantasy is there. It's left and right, creative ideas and what they want to do. Way different than any other game that is from the White Wolf system.
Right.
And then watching this, these are like our close friends, right?
Right.
And I'm checking it out, and I start laughing because I don't, for the first time, I'm not seeing, like Dominic sitting on my couch. I deliberately made sure that the character he had is like a 9-year-old Japanese girl. Dutiful to the parents, the whole like on purpose to see if he could handle that. And what he would do, he's hyper and bouncy and talking about video games and playing the role,
Right.
like owning that role. And I was like, I'm almost mad this isn't live action. This is like some Academy Award type stuff. So I was just in my own head watching this scene this go. And then naturally there were, it's the only game I ever heard of where kids, they had to get scuba equipment was an objective to go hunt for some creature that was in Lake Michigan that had actually killed people. And they were like, well, that can't happen. Who but us if nobody else, right?
Right.
And so, because we're Fae and that's in our area and we don't want that to happen again.
Right.
So, but they still got to go do mundane things. You get a 9-year-old, a 10-year-old, 2 adults, and 1 came out of prison. Right? And they're all Fae of some caliber.
Right.
And they're like, well, we don't have money for scooping here. So one of them volunteers to steal it. That takes pretty much the majority of the game session because of the antics. If you ever think it's easy for a 9-year-old to steal swimming trunks from Target, run the scene. Run the scene. You will be mistaken. It's so incredible to watch people have to think from a different hip level and what adults think of kids and how they're overlooked. They can overthink having to sneak and you have to trick people and what that might be like. And the whole time they're just waiting for this dark side of things to happen. I was like, the dark side's jail.
The
Right,
dark
right.
side's
Scenario?
jail.
Right.
It's really it. I mean, it's you just do you. And it was so fascinating. So the game is like playing something brand new that just opens and broadens that horizon of creativity, which is awesome.
So when does I know when in one of the previous podcasts I was on, like you're playing this for maybe another month, and then you guys are doing your Tremere game again, right? And then yeah,
That's the idea. I don't know how much that's going to hold to because Joe has been going a long time
yeah,
with storytelling as well, and with the exception of me being a freak and just running nonstop,
Right.
the people need breaks.
right.
So if Joe needs a break, we probably will continue with the Changeling game if everybody's having fun,
Cool,
and it seems they are.
awesome, sounds good.
I think we'll wrap up the nerd words. It wasn't super nerdy, but it all comes back to LARPing.
I mean, it was super nerdy because you guys were talking.
Yeah,
so.
we were talking. Thanks, Rachel.
You're
Appreciate
welcome.
you.
Yeah.
You're a
Well, we knew
gem.
that. Had to
Yeah.
share that story. It's a moment that's never going to happen again.
Yeah,
So that's
right.
fantastic.
Right. Well,
Plus, I adore Rachel's insight.
Yeah.
So,
Really?
you tell it, and then it's her insight, and I'm like, now I'm here. Now I'm full picture at this wedding. So it's
right,
awesome.
right. Well, cool. All right. Well, thank you guys for listening. I am Nathan.
And I'm Bob. Thanks, Rachel.
yep.
Bye, Rachel.
I mean, bye guys. I don't know. You had to make it weird at the end. Like I was just content to be quiet.
Hey folks, this is Nathan from 25 Years of Vampire the Masquerade. If you'd like to help support our podcast, there's a few ways you can go about doing so. First, you can get some cool rewards by supporting us at patreon.com/25 Years of Vampire the Masquerade. Check out our website at utilitymuffinlabs.com. We now have a shop where you can get your very own Utility Muffin Lab sticker, or pick up a cool shirt from our TeePublic shop. That's teepublic.com/utilitymuffinlabs. If you want to send us comments, or you are a content creator who'd like to be on one of our podcasts, send us an email to nathan@utilitymuffinlabs.com. Finally, you can send me actual physical letters to P.O. Box 30332, Indianapolis, Indiana 46230. We will be at Gen Con this August as well, so keep listening for more details as they become available. Thank you for supporting Utility Muffin Labs. We are consistently rated adequate.